My name is Peter, recovered alcoholic. Grateful to be alive and sober and part of a sacred place called Alcoholics Anonymous. Again, thank the group for having me back and to share with you. June 23rd, 1988 is when God separated me from alcohol. I'm grateful for this gift of sobriety. I do have a sponsor in a home group called No Problem, Just Solutions over in Boca. And I'm currently sponsoring a lot of guys, 13 guys, and God has me quite busy. I was told I started a little bit of fourth step last week. I really don't remember. So I'm going to just kind of, I guess, see where God takes me and get into step 5. One of the things I've learned along the way here, some of this was really grinding it out and making tons of mistakes along the way. In fact, when I first got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I really believed that because I'm here, I should be like everyone else, and everyone else in my mind levitated at least a few times a day. And I believed because I was in Alcoholics Anonymous that fear would leave, financial security would leave, resentments would leave. I would never get angry anymore as long as I attended meetings. And I woke up to find out that's not true. In fact, most of those things that I would experience, whether resentment or fear or anxiety, was usually a self-imposed crisis. And one of the things I got to experience, and none of this I do perfect, is that my point of view on a lot of things have changed. Our big book tells us troubles of our own making. The unmanageability is always an internal condition. But I didn't know that. I had to find that out by running into a lot of walls and writing lots of inventory, nightly reviews, and doing a fourth step, and really taking a look at, although situations never worked out, I was always involved in all of those things. It's kind of like the guy goes to a sponsor and says, I keep meeting these really crazy ladies. I don't know what to do. He says, maybe they're crazy, but you are involved in every relationship. Your picker is broken. And I had to take a look at some of the people I was hanging out with and running around with in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so it's been constantly awakening and shedding old skin for new. This walk towards humility rather than a struggle towards perfection has been incredibly liberating for me. In fact, just to be in touch with my own brokenness. It's what we identify with. It's what you identify when I share even, or someone else shares and I'm listening, is the shared brokenness of what it was like and sometimes what it's like now. Not to get up here and sound all glossy and shiny and bombard you with all my knowledge. That's not going to do that much for someone who's sitting here with 10 days trying to figure out how to get 11. But something happens along with the solution I found that works for me is when someone shares their struggles of maybe then or even right now, I don't feel like a unicorn sitting in the room. And when I was first new, storytellers attracted me. Then it became unattracted to me because I became so involved with the book. I worshiped the book that if you even misquoted the book, you and I are going to have a little discussion after the meeting. And that's not really Alcoholics Anonymous. I love the storytellers who talk about the solution too. My grand sponsor was a master at it. And so I hopefully along the way, I start to get a little better on this journey. A quick story about step 4. In fact, one of the best things of all the fourth steps and fifth step, all the 4 through 9 work I've done over the years, I try to go through the steps, if not once a year, at least every 2 years. To rework the steps, take a good look at 1, 2, and 3, and see what's hiding in 4, discussing it in 5, and having a new experience with 6, 7, 8, and 9. And I found it kind of rockets you even lighter into 10, 11, and 12, and not to just hold on to what I know. A good example of that is if we got a crew in here, a cleaning and painting crew, and says, remodel the whole room. And they did that. And you'd walk in here and go, oh my God, new furniture, new chairs, new smell of the paint. The floors look great, it looks fabulous. It's impeccable. And we maintained it. We did a daily house cleaning. But guaranteed in a year from now, stuff's going to collect. And until we go look, we won't even know it. I'm not talking about a room, I'm talking about my soul, and I can't afford any plaque on the soul. So we like to go in and see what's lying around. But the best experience, or if not one of the best experience I had in 429 was I was writing inventory with the previous sponsor, and it got to institutions, and we write resentment, cause, effects, where I'm at fault, and with people and institutions and principles. And I got to institutions, and I'm writing about the Catholic Church. I'm a Catholic. And I wasn't an attendee yet. I'd kind of go, not go, take inventory, and leave. And when I'm writing this inventory, I write down Catholic Church and all my causes, all my resentments towards the Catholic Church. And as I'm writing, I still feel really justified by the whole thing, and I do column 3 and 4, and that's done. And I go to sit with my sponsor. His name was Mickey Musson. He's out of Denver, Colorado. Just a tremendous influence on my life. Instrumental getting me back to my church. And I'm sitting with him in 5, and I'm reading through the inventory, and I get to institutions, and I read to him very matter of fact, very casual. Resentment, Catholic Church, cause. I get to the 3rd column, he's listening. I get to the 4th column, and he stops me, he says, back up, which is kind of sponsor code for you're caught. Back up, he says, how long you been nursing this grudge for? And I push right back. And I gave him my justifiable reasons for having this resentment with the Catholic Church. A lot of things I hit him with. And a lot of things we all know about that we read in the papers and stuff. And he listened, he didn't push back, but he gave me considerations. And all my sponsors always says, here's a consideration for you. Once in a while they would tell me, you better do this and you need to do that. But usually it was a consideration for you. And he gave me one. And it went something like this. Do you go to AA meetings? I said, yes. Is every AA meeting a good meeting? I said, no. Are there 13 steppers in AA? I said, yes. Have you known people that get chips who you knew was stoned or high when they're getting up there taking their 1 or 2 years? I said, absolutely, I've seen it. But you keep going back to AA, yeah, and you practice love, tolerance, forgiveness, and acceptance, and you bring a solution. How nice. I said, yeah, of course I do. He said, how come you can't do that with your church? And there was no more pushback. There was silence. He says, before you even get to a spiritual level of discernment to go or not go, you need to clean this up. You need to write some more inventory. And it sounds to me when you get to step 8 and 9, church should be on your 8-step list, and going knocking on the door should be your 9th step. And when he told me to make amends to the church, in my alcohol grandiosity, I'm thinking, how am I going to get in touch with the Pope in Rome to do this? It's going to be difficult. And he says, no, you just go to your local church. There's something called confession. You know about this. So I get to start, wrote some more inventory. Did 6 and 7, had my 8-step list, prayed like a son of a gun for willingness to go, and I walked into a confession on a Saturday at 12 o'clock. And I sat down with the priest, and there's some things you say when you get in there, and I let him know, though, that I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm here to make amends, and I told him what for. My gossiping, my slandering, my criticizing, all of this stuff. And usually they'll say something like, are you sorry for your sins? You say yes, they'll give you some penance, say penance, and you're clean. It's a beautiful thing. But he didn't do that right away. When I told him all my stuff, he says, I understand. And that kind of caught my attention. First time a priest said that to me. And he went on to speak with me for, it seemed like a while, maybe 2 minutes. 3 minutes tops. And he was understanding where I was coming from rather than you're going to go to hell for this. And it made sense. And part of the 9th step was, what can I do to make it right? And I asked him that question, and he said without missing a beat, he says, can you come to Mass tomorrow morning? Sunday Mass, yeah, I'll do that. And in my alcoholic mind, I'm thinking, one Mass, I'm off the hook. I'm good with the Lord. This is going to be great. And Mary and I went to that Sunday Mass, and I was a nervous wreck walking in. You know, when your chest is pounding and you're really nervous. And we went to Mass. I sat in Sinner's Row, the last row. I was too embarrassed to walk up front like a newcomer at a meeting. I can't sit in the front. Those are the holy people in the front. And I sat in the last row, and I didn't know the cues. I'm embarrassed to tell you, because we do aerobics in a Catholic church. We kneel, we sit, we stand, we kneel, we do all these things. And I didn't know them. The only thing I knew was the Lord's Prayer. People are replying when the priest would say, I'm embarrassed, I don't know. But the Lord's Prayer I did know, and it was way before COVID, so people would hold up their hands and hold hands and hold them up high and sing the Lord's Prayer. Now, there was a time when I would walk into a Mass occasionally and people would sing the Lord's Prayer. I thought it was blasphemy. You don't sing this prayer. What is this, like a folk festival, folk music festival? This is church. And suddenly I thought it was wonderful. And when everyone was holding hands saying the Lord's Prayer, I thought of us, because that's what we do. And that's when it kind of hit me. And I'm trying not to break, and I look at Mary, and she's already weeping, so I kind of lost it for a couple of minutes. And we both knew we were home. I knew I was home. And I levitated out of there, quite frankly, and I got on the phone, called my sponsor. He was kind of laughing at me. And I've been a member since. And I realized a bit of a hypocrite I was, talking to you about the grace of God, how much I love God, but I'm not going to his house. What kind of friend am I? I'm praising you all the time, and you invite me to your house, and I never go. And when I do go, I complain about the food you served. And how dark it was before the dawn, because since that day, my life has changed little by slowly. I've gotten to see things and hear things differently. Hopefully most days from the soul rather than from the mind. Hopefully I speak from the soul rather than from the mind, and hopefully my actions come from the soul rather than my mind, because the soul is always right. It knows where to go, what to do, what to say, and how to be. And if my being is right, my actions are going to follow that. If my being is right, my words are going to be that much more effective and come from a place of authority. I don't mean authority like I'm someone over someone, but authority of God. We're sure about what we're saying. I can never, ever, as an alcoholic in AA, adequately express God's words. But because I believe so much in AA and God and the message I'm sharing, he will do it for me. He will do it for us. How does an alcoholic without an education sponsor someone with an education and both of them are uplifted? Because it's soul meeting soul. That education meeting education, or money meeting money, or color or political stuff. It's soul meeting soul. God doesn't care about the other stuff. And we get to walk with authority and speak with authority. What if I didn't do a fifth step again? Or another fourth step. Again, I would have never gotten that free. I would have just held on to old stuff that I tucked away in the closet and everything's cool. What I've learned in doing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, that sometimes what I believe is true is very much a lie. It's how I saw things back then. It's how I may even see things now. I'm not looking at it clearly. I need a new pair of glasses. There's a great story. My sponsor had a sponsee, and the resentment was towards his dad, and the cause was his dad was never home. And my sponsor, what do you mean he was never home? Well, he worked 2 jobs. That's a completely different story. You mean he was out working 2 jobs to feed you and clothe you and buy you Christmas stuff and birthday things? The guy should be a hero. You shouldn't be resentful at him. I remember going into a 4th step and I was so guilty about writing how angry I was with my mom for committing suicide and being an alcoholic. And then as I'm writing it, I says, I tried suicide and I'm an alcoholic. I get the way she had to behave. She had no choice. You get to see things differently. And so what turns out, it kind of looks like this. Someone goes on my resentment list and I'm just seething. Then they go on my 8-step list because I need to make amends. And fast forward a few months or a year, they are now on my Christmas list. And the conversion is happening. Yeah. On some of these things, writing a 4th step, not everyone, but on some of these things, the first three columns turned out to be a total lie. And the real truth was in column 4, where it talks about where I might fall. That's what I did. And usually what I do in column 4 is why I need to make amends. Some of those things really happened the way they happened. I wasn't imagining. I saw it as it was, like being molested. There was nothing slanted on that. But a lot of things I saw, I was seeing from traumatized eyes and hearing with traumatized ears, and not real good growing up skills, quite frankly. So you see things a certain way. And you realize it's one big lie. They never really did that to you. They never really meant to hurt you that way. And little by slowly, I'm acquiring, not on my own power, a spirit of forgiveness towards people I'm really angry with. So when I go to step 9, I'm empathizing where they're at. I'm going in a helpful, forgiving spirit. When a book talks about rigorous honesty, this word honesty is not a conclusion of the mind. In fact, honesty doesn't come from the mind. Whether it's cash register honest or being transparent with someone honest, rigorous honesty about my truth, what I am as alcohol, that comes from the soul. So when I'm writing this 4th step inventory, it requires a whole lot of honesty. I can't cut corners anymore. The 4-column format doesn't allow me to cut corners. It's too strict, if you will. Now, some people have said, well, there's only 3 columns. There's no 4th column listed in the book. Technically, that's true. Page 67 gives us information that we could just answer the question. We put it in a column. There's your 4th column. But I had to get honest, and so what I had to do was pray. Because I remember my first attempt at a 4th step, it looked like this. I'll start in an hour. I'm going to watch a little TV. And watch a little TV. I'm kind of tired. I'll take a nap. I'll fall asleep. I'll start tomorrow morning. And I'll start in an hour, but I'm hungry, so I'll have something to eat. I'll make a pot of coffee. And all these, I should vacuum the rug first and doing all these things. And I was hitting the wall. And my sponsor, they seem to have this sixth sense. So how's that 4th step going? And as soon as you pause, they know you're lying. And he read me the riot act, reminded me of step 3, and he gave me a little prayer. He's just a spiritual tool. And I wrote across the top of the page, thank you, God, for allowing me to be searching, fearless, and moral. That was just a little centering prayer. And he said, I want you to pray that prayer and then go quiet for a couple of minutes. Then pick up the pen, watch what happens. And he was 100% right. Because as we're doing this, stuff will go on paper that we forgot about. Stuff will come on paper I don't really want to write, but it's being put on paper. Resentment, cause, effect, experiment, fault. And the pen, little by slowly, we start to experience it being a spiritual translator. It's writing what the soul needs me to write. Because based on my own power, I'm not going to be searching, fearless, and moral. I'm going to make me look good and blame you even more. And resentment's the number 1 offender. Is it interesting our book doesn't say booze is, resentment is? Because I get blocked from God. I put plaque on the soul. And when I'm in the dark, I'm running on me. When I'm running on me, I drink. I suffer. I get humiliated, degradation, and then I die. Any alcoholic will talk to you about either literally or figuratively knocking on death's door after a run or just wanting to die. And the book's about to save me from that. And as an alcoholic, my mind says, well, let's think about this. It's a little drastic. Going into the worst neighborhood at 2 o'clock in the morning with no money, trying to hustle up some money to go knock on Flacco's door to get it back. That's not too drastic. But writing a 4th step seems very drastic right now. But I got it done. And I had to write a sex inventory. How am I going to do this? A lot of embarrassing things on there. And God got the pen and kept writing. And it's interesting. Thank God our book is not judging us. It's just looking at my conduct that needed to get tweaked, fixed, even overhauled, revolutionized. The way I saw myself as a man, the way I viewed women, what I even thought about sex, what I thought about intimate relationships. All social mores that had to go out the window. They don't work. I think last week I shared, and if I did, forgive me, growing up, the way I was brought up, most women were homemakers. So when I started dating, I figured once they graduate high school, they stay home. And yours truly is going to supply them with all the needs. I couldn't even tie my shoelaces without 6 people helping me. And this one girl I was dating went off to NYU. I said, what's your problem? You can't do this. This is wrong. This is really wrong. What kind of woman are? This is it's hard to have relationships when you're approaching people this way. The complete overhaul. And something happens in 4 through 9 that God does for us what we can't do for ourselves. I know that sounds terribly cliche, but it's just true. I mean, based on my resume getting in here, I should not be doing this for you tonight. Based on my resume getting in here, I got an idea where I would be. Still suffering or dead. That's it. There's no third door. But God had other plans for me. He loves to hire sinners to go to work for him. We seem to be the best. Did I get an amen back there? So I get this whole thing done. I do the whole, write out the sex inventory. You know what's interesting? I put down the worst thing on the sex inventory. Oh my God, take it to the grave stuff. And my sponsor said if there's a name for it, it's already been done. And when I read him these things that I thought he was going to walk out of the room, he looked bored. It's like, it happened to me, I did it even better. It's not really that earth-shattering, but my ego is still in place, so it's going to convince me, it's going to do its best to convince me, do not share this, you will be judged. And the Spirit says, here it is. And your sponsor says, me too. The most difficult thing I had to share was the gentleman who was being appropriate with me for a couple of years in my grandmother's basement. In fact, when I got sober, my grandparents lived there till they passed in that same house in Brooklyn. And I'm older and I'm sober. And we would usually go visit my grandparents for Christmas or Thanksgiving, one of those big holidays. And the basement was still there, didn't go anywhere. And I'm in my 30s, and I was leery about walking in the basement. My grandfather used to have a glass of wine, maybe 2 with his dinner every night. And he used to keep the wine in the basement because it was cool down there. And it was one Christmas, and my grandmother said to me, would you run downstairs and get your grandfather's wine? It's underneath the shelf in the back. And all of a sudden, it was like walking into the most sordid spot on the planet. I'm in my 30s now. And my brothers and my dad, my whole family's upstairs, and I had to go down, and I turned on the lights and was like, okay, we're going in. And I'm shaking as I'm telling you this right now. And I went in, I saw the big gallon of wine, and I brought it up, and I realized I had to call my sponsor because it was still sitting with me. In fact, by this time, I was already sitting with a therapist talking about this stuff. That's called trauma. I'm not more damaged or less damaged than anyone. It's just my story. That's called trauma. So I'm in my 30s. This thing happened to me when I was between about 8 and 10. I'm in my 30s. I'm sober here a few years. I've gone through the steps. I have a therapist. I'm a regular attendee at meetings. And to go into that basement was traumatic. I was not free yet. There was a lot more work ahead of me. The bright side is God showed me that we got more work to do. And he got me free of that. I'm not afraid to go. If my grandmother was still alive, I'll go in that basement freely today. Back then it wasn't that way. Trauma. What am I going to do about this stuff? So I'm sitting in AA. I'm not going to outside help. And I'm not even doing a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm wondering how come I keep relapsing and how come I'm not free? How come I'm tied in a Major League Baseball and I'm still vibrating in here and I got 7 million white chips at home? Where God has given us the sacred rooms called Alcoholics Anonymous to get free. The harvest is plentiful. The laborers are few. He needs boots on the ground. And I keep blowing it up because I'm still selfish and inconsiderate and I don't want to take a look at what I suffer from. So to some degree, I would never survive it. But the bottom I hit in 1988 was really a gift. It got my attention. I can't do this anymore. I'll do anything you tell me to do. I'm happy to report to you, it's almost 38 years now that I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I still follow instructions. I do what I'm told. If I walked in here tonight and Sheldon said to me, listen, skip 4 and 5, you got to talk about 9 tonight, I'd do step 9. I'm not going to debate. Those are the rules. Those are the instructions. Follow them. It's not on my terms anymore. So I get this work done, and I got to get to my sponsors also do this thing called the 5th step. This is like, one thing I've learned, whatever I hide can never be healed. It grows in the dark. It's got to be exposed to the light, God's light. So I got to go sit with the sponsor and unload all of this stuff. And I remember my very first 5th step, my sponsor in New York, up until that point, in my mind, he was AA. He was a big book guy, a meeting attendee, a service guy, a meditator, a church guy, all these. This is the guy. When I had to go see him for a 5th step, it was like, who is this guy? I mean, there's a sex inventory in there. With another man, you're going to share this? Who you're going to see the next day and the day after that, he's going to know you a little too close, a little too much. And I was getting cold feet. And so I followed instructions. They told me to pray before you go sit with the sponsor. I found out my sponsor was praying before I showed up to his door, so he can remain objective and helpful. What I do when I hear 5th steps now, I do that prayer. I go into silent, into meditation, because they're going to come at me with a lot of stuff. I don't need residue on me when they leave, because it will stick around. I've heard some funky 5th steps in my day, some stuff that really is rough. But I was safe and protected because I went to God to be safe and protected and remain objective and helpful and considerate and have empathy. Rather than, oh my God, this person's really sick. I'm not helping anyone when I do that. So I prayed, I went to see my sponsor. And I'll be honest with you, I did a 5th step not too long ago. And still, I get a little nervous. I get uncomfortable. I wish I wouldn't even done this. Why am I doing this for? That's what the head's telling me. But the next move is, hi, I'm here. And I went to my sponsor's door, and we began this 5th step. Our big book says in the beginning of step 5, these things that are blocking us from God are about to be cast out. Cast out. Not worked on, not examined, not embraced, not doing 90 meetings in 90 days. Cast out like garbage. Now, if I went to a therapist, and I've been to 2 in my life besides treatment, and sat down with them saying, listen, for the $200 an hour I'm going to give you, can you cast out all the things that are blocking me? Or if I was in treatment and told the therapist that, they'd medicate me. They think something's really wrong with me. This is not hocus pocus. This is therapy. The big book says they're about to be cast out for one reason. God's going to do that. Indeed, the miraculous. And I've grown to have faith and belief because I've seen it done. The cool thing about having faith, it doesn't need an argument or an explanation. I believe it. I have faith in this. No matter what you throw at me, it's going to fall over there. It's not going to land on me because I have faith. So I had faith that my sponsor believed. And so I'm going in. I don't know where we're going. I'm going in. I was petrified. And we prayed before I began, just to get centered. And to remind me that God was sitting in the middle of the 2 of us. This was so important. And I remember going to him. In fact, all my sponsors have done this. They created an environment that was safe because they've done 5th step. They know it's uncomfortable. And they all prayed. And they would ask me, what's the thing you don't want to talk about? It's probably in your sex inventory. Let's get that out of the way. The rest of this will be a cakewalk. So here it is. And I began reading to them, and my sponsor would have a big book, a notepad, and a pen, and he told me I might write them some stuff down, things that I'm inspired to write while you're talking. Pay no attention to that. They also told me stick to the script. Because as an alcoholic, I like to do this. Resentment caused, let me explain to you what happened. And I go on this tangent for about an hour and a half. And then we come back. He's, don't do that. Just stick to the book, because I have to assume that's what God gave you. And so that's what I did. Resentment, cause, effects, what my fault, next one, so on and so forth. Go through the fear inventory, go to the sex inventory. Nothing happened. He didn't walk out. The earth didn't swallow me up. But what I walked away with, that someone knows me and they're still here. Marion tells a great story on her fifth step, that she did it with this pastor, and she thought he was going to walk out, and he says, you thought I wasn't going to love you after this? That's basically every sponsor's sentiment when they hear a fifth step. I'm not leaving. In fact, we're even closer. And my sponsor shared with me some very difficult things that he went through, like molestation. He said, happened to me. Let me tell you about it. I was terribly intimidated. I may have shared this, by alpha males. The man who did this thing to me was, I would now know as an alpha male. Growing up, I was terrified of alpha males because I knew they were going to corner me. And through the work and a lot of prayer, I got away from that. I was terribly intimidated by people who were educated because I didn't go to college, especially in the field I'm in that's credential driven. I would feel like just shrink up and go away. You have nothing to offer. I got past that. When I've been around people who are very, very good looking, built really well, dressed to the nines, I'm really uncomfortable. I don't measure up to that. I got away from that. There was a time growing up I was afraid of intimacy. Too much of a commitment. I'm not good enough to be in a committed relationship. I'm not that good. I got away from that. In fact, April 9th, I'll be married 4 years. Ain't that cool? So I eventually finished this fifth step with my sponsor, and he was taking notes. Once in a while, he would ask me some questions. Let's talk about that one. And, well, you weren't really dishonest here, you were more this. You weren't really selfish there, it was more like that. Let's talk more about the self-centered stuff. And he would elaborate, and I would take notes, and I was learning, and I was getting free. I didn't realize how free I was going to be until I got to 9, 10, 11, and 12. And when I left his house, and I was headed home for the hour quiet time, I didn't experience the fifth step promises. What I did experience was it's done. And I really felt like I earned my stripes and I belong in AA now. I can measure up with the older guys in AA who've done fifth steps. I can raise my hand and comment on a fifth step. I did it. I'm in the crowd now. I'm in the club. This was wonderful because I belonged nowhere before that other than attending meetings and trying to really fit in here. And there was some work for me to do when I got home. And I've done it as recently as the last fifth step. This is crucial time. It's the hour quiet time. It's the only part of our book that gives us a time frame in the steps. I'm supposed to go home for an hour and get quiet for an hour. It says take this book down from the shelf, carefully reviewing the first 5 proposals. So my sponsors had, go take a look at one. You still believe you're an alcoholic? Well, yeah. You still believe God can restore your sanity? Yeah. Are you still willing to have God be everything and turn everything over to God? Yeah. Things like that. When you're searching fearless mode, you write everything down, you share everything. Nowadays, I actually kind of feel bad for some of the younger folks coming in because they're so bombarded with social media and they're constantly listening or watching to something, and they come into AA and go home, do a fifth step, no Facebook. I've seen this on Facebook. Just did my fifth step. There was a young lady the other day who had a picture day 1 of sobriety. So they're coming in bombarded with noise and we're telling them, go get quiet for 1 hour. No, nothing. That's a big order. You mean I came and listened to something? Nothing. Because God's going to talk to you now. But I went into the hour quiet time and I sat quiet. I reviewed. Did I forget anything? No, everything was okay. So if I sat in the hour quiet time, in fact, it gives us some pretty cool instructions where Bill kind of says the same thing over and over again in different ways. He says, returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we've done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know him better. That was my prayer. Thank you, God. Now, I didn't experience knowing God better. I didn't understand I was in an experience with him. I'd rather have an experience with God than to know God, because I'll never really know God. I have an understanding of my God right now. I know who it is. I pray to the carpenter. I got an idea about this. But for me to say I understand his ways, I'd be a fool. So I'd rather have an experience with God. It says, taking this book down from the shelf, I turned to the page which contains the 12 steps, reading the first 5 proposals, and then he asks some questions. And it's basically over and over again, appealing to maybe a different ear. Pete, did you leave anything out? Did you not want to share something that's tucked in the glove compartment of your car? And I would get quiet for that hour. I had an interesting experience a number of years ago. My sponsor, there was a gentleman, Mark Houston, who sponsored me for a long time. For me, probably my greatest teacher. And he was insightful as a son of a gun. And he said, he would always talk to me. First time I heard about the dying of self for successful living, the death of self for successful living. We need to die to self. We talk a lot about this. As you can't make it happen, but on a spiritual path, it may happen. And I got it, but I didn't experience it. And I get the hour quiet time, and this is about my 3rd or 4th time going through the steps. And during this hour quiet time, I'm starting to feel really uncomfortable. I think of who I was, and it's causing tremendous pain, embarrassment and shame and guilt. I'm almost reliving it. I'm starting to feel physically uncomfortable, almost like, you know that feeling when you're coming down with the flu, you're starting to feel kind of just icky. And I start to question everything. And I can't take the anxiety anymore. I just want to roll under the covers and hide out. What do? I break the hour and I go to the phone and I call up Mark. And I tell him all of this. And like the gifted man he was, his reply was exactly this. It sounds to me like you're having an experience, and hung up the phone. Now what do I do? So I go back to being quiet, meditating, and just being still. He called me back. And he explained to me exactly what was happening to me. He says, Money, we've been talking about experiencing the death of self for successful living. Is it possible, a consideration, that that's what was happening to you then? I didn't tell you how I was going to feel or what you were going to hear in your head, but that's probably what was happening. I cannot interrupt that. And he cited when Silky walked into Bill, and Bill's having a white light experience. Silk walked in and said, let's flush this out and process it and talk about it. I'll give you some medication. He left him alone because he recognized something was happening. I'd never been the same. In fact, I was married at the time, and my ex-wife was gone for 3 days on a drunk cocaine run. And I'm doing this work. And normally, when she walked in late Sunday, as a man, I had to defend my honor, and an argument would have taken place. And when she walked in the same clothes, reeking, I had pity. I knew it was over. I wasn't in self-pity. Oh my God, it was like this poor soul has completely lost her way, has just blown up this marriage. And I left and I went to see Eckhart Tolle that night at the Beacon Theater. And Monday morning I woke up fine. And somewhere over the next week or two I called a lawyer. And I got free. Free of this torment, prayed for this. I tried to put this person in treatment like, I don't know how many times, called in for scholarships, and she died a couple of years ago of alcoholism. But the new eyes God gave me, the new heart, if you will, soul God gave me, the new ears God gave me to encounter that and not get involved with it. So I like the effect produced by all of this. I've had many men, I'm running out of time here, I've had many men come to me, I sponsor, and some people say, hey, can you hear some inventory? They do multiple fifth steps. And I do the same thing my sponsors do. I pray before they get there. I pray when they do get there. I have a notepad and pen. Nowadays, I keep a Bible with me along with my big book, just for extra protection and guidance. I don't mean that to be cute. I really mean that, so I can be of maximum service. And I do the same thing my sponsors did with me. It has allowed me to own my brokenness, and there was great liberation in that, to get free of me. Not perfect. I still make a lot of mistakes. But one of the things that came out of this was a man I was terribly frightened by and was convinced he didn't like me. My old man, I realized it was quite the opposite. He pretty much lived for me and my brothers, and I was able to be eyeball to eyeball with my dad for a long time and be there when he died with no shame and no guilt and no remorse, but a very transparent life with my old man. This is something that's not written in the book, but it's a promise that came to me, a hope that I was realized because of the work. If you haven't experienced the sacredness of Alcoholics Anonymous, I pray that one day you stick around long enough and walk into a room and experience the sacredness of Alcoholics Anonymous, man, because we get reborn and resurrected here for fun and for free. We see people walk, I've been around long enough to see it, and people saw me walk in, tore up from the floor, broken, can't put a sentence together, riddled with 100 forms of fear, resentments, the self owns them, regrets, remorse, guilt, you name it, we got it. And we're not drinking. Fast forward 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, they're impeccable. They're reliable, dependable, reliable, responsible, all of those nice things. And then some of us go on to have families. And when you hear the story, you say, it's impossible. It's impossible. But here we are, walking shoulder to shoulder. I'm just grateful to be here. That's all I got. Peace.